Hey, Strap fans, get your toasters ready. It's time to discuss the toaster boys, the Adeptus Mechanicus. So I got a comment on my last Gladius video to cover the Adeptus Mechanicus, so I bought the DLC, played them, and I gotta say, they're pretty powerful, but I gotta break it down for y'all so y'all can see exactly how they work, because they are a little bit on the iffy side with how the mechanics work and can be a little confusing, so don't worry, fret not, dear viewer. I will show you all there is to know about the Adeptus Mechanicus. And make sure if you like the feeling of that toaster on your groin, you filthy Adeptus Mechanicus Guitari, make sure to leave a like, comment down below, chunk a sub to my channel to see more Warhammer Gladius vids and other strategy game vids. Now let's roll in and see what these toaster boys have cooked up. Now we brought to the Mechanicus. So disciples and the machine god have a hard initial start. They do have these special abilities here that help them better off, and also they build really tall. They have increased output for their buildings as long as they're on the same tile type. So like ore buildings would produce more ore on ore tiles and so on and so forth. They also increase the output of buildings on a tile through forceful intensity through their power surge mechanic. Their hive cities mechanic is what allows them to build tall. A Mechanicus player can have a couple tall cities and be better off than a Astra Militarum player with like 10 cities. And then they also have their Scutari subroutines amplify close combat while reducing others' close combat stuff. They do have a little bit of buffs. They have a lot of buffs all around. They have increased research costs, so it takes a long time to research things because they have this little one called Enslaved to the Past. The ability to truly innovate has long been lost for them, and they've been replaced for reverence for the times when humanity was architect of its own destiny. It takes a long time to research them, but they can reprogram Castellan robots, which are insane. It is an insane power to do. I'm going to try to do that for y'all so y'all can see how that is. And they can capture them and reprogress them with the data smiths. They do have units that have high damage resistances due to their bionics. That's really good. And also their upgrades increase building output with each adjacent building too. You compile them together, they just can increase so much. The reason why their initial challenge is hard though is because they don't start with all of these, so you have to build these buffs up. And because the research is so slow, it's going to be a while till you get some really good units for them. Other than that, let's go onto the ground on Gladius Prime and see how these guys work.
Gladius Prime. Adeptus Mechanicus first. What hive world was not? Its cities, its satellites, its wastes, all created with Mars's wisdom, all answering only to the tech priests. That is, to you, Magos. It was little work to hide your research into the Tyranids here, deep beneath the ashen wastes. Disastrous though it was. But you have followed the Omnissiah's plans. And now is the time to finally execute on them.
Alright, here we are. Whoa, man. Whew. I had forgotten that the reason why everything got fucked up on Gladius is because the Mechanicus toiled with the Tyranids. Shit. Let's build our first city. See where a good spot is. I don't think we need as much food as other places because we have bionics, but we still do need food. There's not a lot of food here. I think right there would be good. Let's move these guys real quick. The Scutari. Yeah, right there would be good. We'll use the data smith. Oh, and there's our building. There's our main building. We'll acquire just a couple tiles. We'll start with the food tile and this tile as well. And then once we build them, we're just going to build a little bit of this, but we should build a librarium to get some research because we do have a research deficit. That's usually what I do when I started. I've only played these guys once so far. I just did a quick playthrough, and then I was going to show you guys a guide on my thoughts because I hadn't purchased the DLC yet because I wasn't a big Mechanicus fan. I gotta say, they're pretty cool. The game does them justice. Even though the lore makes them sound horrific, the game actually makes me kind of want to go for the homicide. It makes me feel a little patriotism for them. Here's the power surge ability that gives you a big boost of 25% boost on everything, 12% boost on production, but it's a cooldown of 6 turns. It costs some influence, but you can keep spamming this. That's really good to have. Oh, what's that? There's an Eldar webway on top of a Necron tomb. I've never seen that before. Jesus. Alright, let's get these Scutari moved out. Of course, this because we want to try to locate what's all over here. And then of course, our first research. This is a really nice tech tree. As you get closer, you get to like the big units like the Knight Crusaders and all that. But again, you're gonna start small. For this first one, the Cerberus Slurper Hounds, I'm probably gonna butcher all these names, I'm sorry. They're a pretty good infantry unit with flame weapons, any war that cripples enemy infantry or monstrous creatures. This is good against like monsters and anything that has a weakness to flame. Skitarii Marshal is a nice hero unit that you start with. The Rangers are a nice sniper unit and they can move through cover pretty easily. There's a couple units that you start with. I usually start with one of these, either the Solper Hounds or the Rangers. The Marshal is okay, but I haven't found that he does that good of buffs, but he leads and he's a pretty good hero unit. The Data Tether increases the morale. Malefactum Cybernetica produces your ground vehicles, so you get the ground vehicles really easily too. This one increases the armor but reduces the movement of imperative units. And Thermal Exchange Efficiency increases the bonus outputs of Power Surge. Again, Power Surge is going to be your best friend. I usually start with Solper Hounds, then Skitarii Rangers, and then I'll go back to get the Manufactorum as well before I can build some good robots, because the Mechanicus has some really good robot vehicle units. You see tier 3 Castellan Robot, which is insane. So again, I do Solper Hounds, and then you could either do the Manufactorum or the Rangers, up to you, but that's usually what I do, is I do Solper Hounds, Rangers, and Manufactorum. That's pretty much how you get set up. You only need to take a few tiles at a time before you build on them, because again, you can layer yourself up. So you can make one city feel like 10 if you can build it right. Now, with that, we're going to go through a few turns, and I'll catch you guys at tier 2. Alright, and here we are back. So now that we've unlocked it, we can do the Subculster, which allows us to produce Tech Priests, as well as increases population limit and loyalty, which you'll see that a lot of the Mechanicus stuff, their buildings, do multiple things. That's because they can stack people on top of each other and all that, so it allows them to really build tall. So they're the best faction to build tall with. They do have this buff that increases the flat amount of research you gain when you gain the Runes of Vol. The Tech Priest Manipulus, which you get from getting this building, is pretty good with supporting abilities and neutralizing enemy effects, so he's really good at that. This is your first vehicle, the Scorpius Dune Rider, a very fast ski type thing. It's not the most powerful, but it's a start. Omni Specs, it allows your Skitarii Vanguard and Skitarii Rangers to ignore range damage reduction, which is pretty good against certain factions like Tau. The Litany of the Electromancer, it's an attack that cost scales the amount of canticles of the Omnissiah units that you have. This is a nice ability to have, but it doesn't do that much damage as I've seen. The Hab Fane, of course, was our Hab block building, so that's always good. So for number 2, I'll get the Subculster so I can get the Tech Priest. I usually do both of these and then the Dune Rider just to get some fast scouts out there. That's usually what I do. That's tier 2. I haven't been able to produce the units yet. I'm working on them. In tier 3, we'll be able to see the units, but I've cleared a little bit of the map. My Skitarii have killed a little bit of things. They actually are decently powerful. They don't have a lot of attack. They have an okay amount of defense. The Rad Saturation allows them to pretty much cause passive damage on the enemies after you do an attack, so that's always good too. Not the best units to start with, but the Skitarii look cool. They have these little plasma rifles. Alright, so now I'll catch you guys in tier 3. And here we are, just got up to tier 3. I've unlocked all of these. So now on to tier 3. We have the Adjacency Integration, which increases the building research output for each building and adjacent tile. This is crucial to fix your research deficit, so this is a really high contender. The Fulgurite Electro Priests, Candle Omniscient melee infantry unit that increases its damage reduction by killing units. So the more units this guy kills, the less damage he takes. The Castellan Robot, which is like the godsend, it's extremely durable and heavily armored candles on the Omnissiah Comnat walking unit. It is insane. You've seen these little guys walking around. Now you can build them. So the Protector Imperative increases the range accuracy, but it does have a debuff. The Servitor Cradle increases the loyalty, and the Tech Priest Dominus is a self-reliant hero unit that has a scouting ability and some damage buffs. So again, there's a lot of hero units that you've seen within these first 3 tiers, but the Castellan Robot is a must-send. I usually go for him immediately, and then I usually go for the Adjacency Integration, and then maybe pick up the Electro Priest or the Tech Priest. The Castellan Robot is a godsend because he really ups the ante for you, and you're just able to destroy things left and right with him. I usually go for him as soon as possible. Now, I did get these guys. They do this little... They look really, they have a really cool animation. And they also do a lot of damage against non-fire resistant enemies. They're really cool. They're running like robot horses. These are the Solper Hounds. I do have the Rangers being produced, and then I'm going to have the little dirt bike thing produced as well for tier 4. I will show you guys that as well. I'm going to try to save up the Power Surge so I can show you guys what it does, because it does help a lot with getting resources. We're expanding pretty fast. That's what you'll do as the Mechanicus. You just got to be on the lookout for, because you're kind of weak early game, but as soon as you get the Castellan Robot, you're going to be unstoppable. Let's go on to tier 4, guys. Now here we are with a tier 4. Now tier 4 has a lot of buffs, only one unit. The Skikarian Infiltrators, they're a unit that specializes in infiltrating enemy lines. They're a very stealthy unit. The Dogma Metallica increases the armor penetration of assault weapons. It's pretty good. The Chanter of the Remorseless Fist increases the melee accuracy of your Omissire units. The Artisan Construction is pretty much what you have in your base scheme. But one thing you'll notice is that these little buffs, these adjacency buffs, you can get these ones to pretty much tune whatever you need. So like right now, I'm suffering from food, so I can get this Selenium's acquisition team's buff that will increase my building food output for each building in an adjacent tile. It means every adjacent tile will have more food buff for it. Of course, Maver Forming increases your acquisition radius. The Lucian Specialization increases the output of non-headquarters buildings on the same tile, just like their stacking mechanic. This one is pretty much just a bunch of buffs. I'd usually go for the Infiltrators if I'm having trouble with units escaping my line of sight, or I could go for the acquisition teams, like I said, because I'm struggling with food, or we could go for all these other ones. The Dogma Metallica is pretty good with their assault weapon buff, but this one's pretty much just buffs. I do have a new unit to show that finally came out of the woodwork. This is the Skitarian Rangers. They look really cool, and they have a really nice plasma lance or something, whatever it's called. I'm going to show you what it does. These are little snipers. That's a lot of damage, so that does really well. And then these are the Skitari, little blue plasma, a lot of damage. And of course we have, as I showed you, our Sulper Hounds. They're really good at dealing with infantry, and they don't take as much damage from ballistic weapons I've seen, so that's pretty good as well. We're just exploring the map, getting some stuff. We're building up here as well. We've pretty much stabilized. We can do a power surge, and I can do any building. Right now I need food. So we'll do a power surge there, and the next turn I'll get some food. Hopefully increase our food output. I'll go through some more turns, and I'll meet you guys back here at tier 5. And here we are finally at tier 5. So tier 5, you get a little bit more good buffs, and you can get different buffs for Ore, Triplex Necessity here, Voices in the Code, increase the morale loss of enemy units next to the Infiltrators, which gives them a better use, I might add. The Stygian Enlightenment reduces the research cost, which is, again, beneficial for your research. The Onager Dune Crawler, it's a nice walker unit focused on exterminating flying units, so it's your anti-air. And the Game-In Protocols increases your armor of your infantry, which is really good. And the Conqueror Imperative increases the melee accuracy, but decreases the range accuracy of your Imperatives units, which again, I don't think it's really good. I usually avoid it because I don't really go for melee units. I usually go for the range units, especially for the Mechanicus, because they're Castellan robots. So I usually go for either the Dune Crawler, just to get some anti-air, or the Game Protocols first, but one of those two is what I do. It depends on your situation. But I do have a nice unit to show you. Here's our Castellan robot. You see these little guys? These guys gave me so much PTSD as a guard player. But now that I'm Mechanicus, does a nice amount of damage to that Tyranid structure there. We're doing pretty well. We've expanded the city. One thing you want to know is each tile you want to have the same type of building on. So if you can do that, have one tile for each type of building, and then you can get a huge amount of bonuses from there. I should have claimed that. Did I claim that? I don't think I did. I should have claimed that. You want to claim things all around you too. I have a little bit of a territory dispute with some orcs down here, and the Tyranids right here. We're getting it solved out, okay? That's a Castellan robot. I have some more producing, so we'll see you at a tier 6. Alright, now we're on to tier 6. So for tier 6, we have some nice picks. We have the Benediction of Omnisus, increases the range accuracy of Canticle's Omissary units, constant effectiveness scales with the amount of effective units, increases your accuracy. Continentus Heavy Stubber, it grants the Onager Doom Crawlers the Heavy Stubber, which I think it gives them anti-infantry capabilities. Fedorm Voss Prime, it was an adjacency one. Hammer of Wrath, which we've seen with every other one. The Protraxi, it's an infantry unit that can jump over enemies and burn them out of cover, so it's really good at dealing with entrenched enemies. And then the Risen Savagery increases the armor penetration of melee weapons. I don't really use a lot of melee weapons as the Mechanicus. If you do, this is the one for you. I usually go for these guys first because they're pretty good at clearing out entrenched enemies, especially if I'm facing guard or orcs or Tau. It does really good at dealing with them. And then I'll either do the Voss Prime to increase the influence, or the Hammer of Wrath to just give my heroes and special units a damage buff ability. For the units, I've actually recruited my first hero unit, Tech Priest Manipulator. He does have a heal, which makes him very useful. I also have armor penetration buff and a stun that he can use on enemy units. So that's really good. I usually do for the heal, stun, and the armor penetration buff. It does like a field around. So I can actually give him some of these unclaimed items that I have, which Lightning Gauntlet plus 50 damage. I'll probably go with the hit points and the gauntlet. And then of course we'll do a power surge on the power grid here because we're trying to produce more power. Here is the fast moving unit. It's really good for just ferrying units back and forth. I don't really see much else use for it, but it's really good. It can do pretty good against infantry. You can use it for that. We also have been beating up the Tyranids here really hard with my Castellans and all these guys. We've been doing pretty well. I'm going to see you guys at tier 7. Stay tuned for that one. Alright, now on to tier 7. Now we're starting to really spice things up. We got the Gripulon, it increases the armor of our vehicles. This one right here allows us to produce aircraft as well as generates food, ore, and influence, which is a staple. The broad spectrum data tether is an ability for the Bastari, the Scorpius, Dune Rider, all of our units. It reduces the morale units of adjacent units, so it's a nice morale buff. The Captron destroyers, they're an infantry unit that's devastating for anti-armor, really good at destroying cities and things with high armor. The Reclamator protocols increase the growth rate of cities, which is really good late game for the Mechanicus because they suffer from a reduced growth rate as well, I've noticed. The Shadow Splom, it increases the range damage of your Omnissiah units. Its effectiveness scales by the amount of units you have, so it's another ability you can have. Puts on the abilities next to your Power Surge slot over there. For this one, I usually go for these guys. Really good at destroying cities, especially when you're facing a lot of enemies. Or you could do the Reclamator protocols, like I said, because you do have a reduction in your population growth. So it's one of these two. You could do the data tether, increases your morale, but I haven't really seen many morale issues because most of them are robotic units. This is a nice one to have too because you can get your air units, which is really good for going around the battlefield, or buffing up your armor is really good as well. So I usually go between either the destroyers or the armor, just because you have a lot of vehicles on the map, you want to buff their armor up. So I'm going to go with destroyers right now. Let's see my new units. The Marshal I finally got, this guy right here. He increases his aggression override, which increases their attacks. This edict removes his doctrines around you, so you can clear him up, as well as he has the Servo Skull uplink, which increases his damage, which is really good. And then these are the Infiltrators. They're more of a melee focused unit. They do have the blasters as well as the taser goad. They do pretty well. We encountered some Space Marines. I've been whipping their butt. We whipped the Tyranids' butt off the planet. That's always good. Now I'm going to go up to a tier 8. I'll get you guys back there. So here we are at tier 8. We're starting to lose all of our options because we're getting close to tier 10 to be the final tier. So tier 8 is when we get the Aggressor Imperative, increases the movement but decreases the armor of your Imperatives unit, but it does scale up. You do have this flying combat unit, which is pretty good. I haven't built the flying area yet. If you want to, you can take your time to get that, be able to build it. It's up to you. The armor penetration with heavy weapons is pretty good with the Scriptorium Ordius. Scorpius Disintegrator is a really good frontline tank unit that I absolutely get. It's really good. Solar Reflectors increases your energy output. This is a must-have as well for later games because as you stack them, you take a lot of toll on your energy. I usually will go for the tank and the Solar Reflectors, but depending on how bad your energy crisis is, will determine which one you go for first, just in my opinion. So I usually will go for that first because I usually suck with my energy, and then I'll go for the tank and get the tank out. Now, we've kicked some Space Marine butt here. I've got my heroes on the front line, my little zappy guys right here as well, my Castellan robots. I'm churning them out. I also have finally got these guys, the Protraxi guys, these little flying guys that have napalm guns. They're really, really cool. I haven't seen them in action that much yet. Here's the anti-air unit. Really good against ground vehicles too with the upgrade. Other than that, I've produced one more city. I'm starting to build it up. I'm going to build a city right about here to try to help out my forces over here in countering these enemy players that we're destroying. Don't you worry, I have a lot of units in the pipeline. Once I have all of the units, I will show you guys them in this guide. Don't worry, I will not skip out on a unit. Every toaster shall be featured, my friends. Now I'm going to go back to it. I'll catch you guys at tier 9. Alright, and here we are at tier 9, now getting some of the juicy units. So the first one you're going to see is the Knight Crusader. This is a super heavy walking unit, endless array of deadly ranged weapons. It's insane. I usually go for this immediately. The Optate Restrictions increases the population limit of Hab Fames, which is really good. Invocation of the Machine Might increases the melee unit melee damage of Canticles of Omnissiah units, which increases their effectiveness, and then the High World Approval increases your tile acquisition even more. Command Uplink is an ability for your Transvector Sotoraptor that reduces the morale loss. So it's another morale one. I usually go for the Knight Crusader and the Invocation of Machine Might, or you can go for the Hab or Restrictions or the High World Approval, but I usually go for the Knight Crusader first. As for new units, I think I have one. Yes, I have this one right here. This is the Destroyers. They're really insane. We also have a few more Castellan robots. We're pushing the Space Marines even further back. We've caught them at their fortress. We found the Necrons. They were attacking the Orcs here, and then wiping them out. Yeah, we're just building up. I have a couple more cities. I have this city right here. I have this city right here. We're building up and just trying to build tall. Let's activate another power surge on our power bank. This one's really tall right here. I'm going to meet you at tier 10, and I'm going to hopefully have all the units ready for you to see. That'll wrap up the guide. I'll see you at tier 10, guys. Alrighty, and now finally we have the tier 10. Unfortunately, I did not get to the air unit, but to be honest, it's not that impressive, so not really missing much. But the air units can be good for, scouting around. I do have the big boy here. I have the tank, Scorpius Disintegrator. It's insane. Look at its attack. Did a whole lot of damage. And then I have the big boy, the Imperial Knight, the Knight Crusader. He is insane. He's gonna wipe out the goes that. Alrighty. Of course, I'm backed up. If you've seen, I do have kind of a composition going on. The Scutari Rangers are probably the best for anti-infantry. They have insane armor bane. They're really heavy. Their snipers do increased damage against armored targets, so they're really good against pretty much anything. So I really picked them for a lot. That's kind of my composition for them, is picking those. Now, to kind of look at my research that I picked for tier 10, I do the twin-linked autocannon for the Crusaders, because then they do more damage, and they also do more damage against infantry units. Now, for the second one, to be honest, I'd actually start backtracking and getting other techs. You could do like the Blessed Conduits. You'll be able to use Power Surge more. Icons of the Omnissiah increases your loyalty. Incantation of the Iron Soul reduces the morale loss. Terran Generalism increases your output. So that's probably what I'd go for tier 10 to increase your output. It's looking really good. We build tall here at the Blessed Acculator. Pretty tall. We're also building tall here, pretty much everywhere. And we've just claimed a bunch of stuff. We've wiped out 2 enemy forces. Started wiping out the Necrons. They get pretty powerful, especially in the late game when you start to get the Night Crusaders. They're buffed up by Castellan robots. They're doing really well. I ended up enjoying the Mechanicus quite a bit, to be honest with y'all. Even though I didn't find any Castellan robots to repurpose, that is a nice feature if you get lucky for that. But if not, you can just build your own. It's not that bad. And the Castellan robots that you build, they seem to be a bit underpowered compared to the Castellan robots that you get from just roaming around. Maybe it's because they're different. I don't know. Anyway, that's all there is about the Mechanicus. Let's wrap this up now. One final thing, I did encounter a Lord of Skulls pop down here, and he killed a lot of my Castellan robots and my other toaster boys. Rest in peace, toaster boys. I hardly knew you. Anyway, let's wrap this up, guys. So there we have the Adeptus Mechanicus. The intricate toaster boys of Mars are very, very powerful, especially in late game. They can actually get access to really good units early game and can power roll even more. You want to look out for building too wide for them because they really do well with building tall because they could just stack one on top of the other. A couple more tips just to recap. You want to make sure that when you build a building, make sure that it's in the same square so you can get that bonus. Focus on Scutari Rangers. They are really insane. The Scutari Vanguard are decent, but not as good as the Rangers. The Rangers do really well, but they do lack any serious melee units. The Skirmishers or the Infiltrators are a decent melee unit, but they're not as good. The Tech Sideboard ones, they're pretty good, but again, you don't really have access to that insane of melee units, so I'd focus more on ranged. When it comes to using your Power Surge, it's really good. Always use it when it's available to try to surge your resources back up. Adeptus Mechanicus, big resource whores. They're insane. They love it. I've said it one too many times this time, but they love their toasters. So I hope you guys enjoyed this one, and of course remember to follow Colonelstrat. Hit that notification button so that you can see all the other wonderful Gladius guys I got coming. Remember, as always, keep it strategic, Strat fans. Colonel out.